In this episode of Inclusion Dialogues, we are joined by Sabriye Tenberken, social innovator, co-founder of Braille Without Borders and Kanthari, and 2005 Nobel Peace Prize nominee. A global changemaker, she powerfully embodies our theme, the right to be blind without being disabled.
Hello, my name is Sabriye Tenberken. I'm originally from Germany, but since 1998 I live in Asia. First long time in Tibet, where I started the first school for the blind, and later I came to India.
I'm Dr. A. Ananthalakshmi, born and brought up in India, worked in the corporate for 25 years, did a PhD about blind achievers, and that's how I met my wonderful dearest friend Sabriye here, and that was a life-changing perspective. And I now work as a CEO and founder of Equibeing Foundation, an organization that works for people with blindness.
So we are here in Kanthari. This is our institute. I'm the co-founder of Kanthari, and Kanthari is a social impact institute for persons from all around the world who have survived crisis situations, and out of this survival they have come up with solutions for old and new problems.
Yes, and I actually grew up in Kerala, the same state where Kanthari is located, and I grew up hiding my eye condition because I was born with a macular degenerative eye condition, and the only way to navigate through the social context was hiding it and not showing up. So I look absolutely sighted, but I passed as a person with visual impairment. And then life brought me to this research, Sabriye, and you will remember that it is through that I mapped blind achievers in the world, and I mapped Sabriye to be one of the blind achievers of my peer times. And imagine when I came here down first time to meet you, Sabriye, I remember that my entire context of hiding and having been overprotected by my context just threw me out of gear, where I understood from her experience of having grown up that we had a very different upbringing and a social educational context. And then from then on our friendship and partnership started, where I quote Sabriye's words saying, the right to be blind without being disabled. So with that, Sabriye, I really want you to throw some perspectives of your growing up years. Especially you turned blind at the age of 12. And when you were born itself, your parents kind of understood that you were going to have a visual impairment. So what did they do with you in the first 10 years of your life? And then the school that you went to in Germany, and how was schooling in Germany? I just want you to kind of give a perspective about that.
So my parents, they understood that at one point I would turn blind. It's called pseudoretinitis pigmentosa, so there are pigmentations on the retina, and the doctors were very, very clear about, so with entrance of puberty, I would not be able to see first colors, then maybe night and dark vision is going to be blurry, and at a certain point I would turn completely blind. Now, hearing this for a sighted person, of course, is first of all a bit scary, but luckily my parents were not too scared. They said, well, somehow she will manage. We are sure we have to give her all the trust, and we have to give her all the visual input that she needs to understand that there is a visual world out there, and then she will somehow able to cope with it. And I guess they did well. I mean, they did well also by not really telling me that I would become blind at a certain point, because what do I know how it feels to be blind? I think I was around 9 years old when I first really understood that there was something wrong. It was in the winter time. It was ice cold. We had ice on a little lake, and every time we had ice on this lake, we would go out with our ice skates, and I saw my friends going in a circle, and I thought, like, hey guys, we are not here in a commercial ice ring. We are here on a lake. We can go as we like, right? So I put on my ice skates and I jumped on the lake, and I went right through the middle of the circle, and and there was a crack in the ice, and I was in with my feet. So it was not very dangerous, but it was very uncomfortable. And that was the first time when I really understood, hey, wait a minute, I cannot trust my eyes anymore. That's not a nice thing to understand, right? The next thing was colors. Colors were very, very important for me. I was painting a lot, and I was playing around with colors. And for me, colors were maybe therefore very important because slowly but steadily I was losing my sight, right? And I was recognizing people on their jackets or on certain patterns, or I was recognizing cars on a certain color. Now, when I understood that I couldn't see colors as I used to see colors, that was the time when I really felt something is very wrong. And then the teasing started, and the mimicking started, and where children were making fun of me, right? So from a complete extrovert with a lot of children as friends, I became a complete introvert, not being able to talk, not being able to say anything. And and that was the time where probably something changed. Also a mindset was changing. Now, you can change in two different ways. And I see this also with many blind, other blind kids. You can either stay in the mindset of nobody loves me, I'm the poor blind kid. You can stay in the victim mentality, or you can break out of it and can focus on what you are actually able to do. What are your strengths? What is actually still possible? And luckily, I was in the state at a certain point where I woke up at one point and say, hey, wait a minute, blindness is not that bad after all. There is a beauty of blindness. I just have to understand that, for example, my focus is much better than before. My memory became much better. My speaking skills much more profound. And this is something that I tell a lot of blind people. I mean, what are you really good at? And normally they say, oh, I can hear better. No, you cannot hear better. You can focus more, right? And on the other hand, what a lot of blind people don't understand is that they're actually problem solvers. They have to solve, if they're a little bit empowered, they have to solve problems day by day, from morning to evening. And that gives them this beautiful gift of solving problems, not only for themselves, but for any other situation as well.
Yes.
And that's why we came to this idea, why not starting a school for problem solvers? Not for the blind, but for problem solvers who have to focus.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And there, Sabs, I mean, very beautifully put. I think what really mattered was the fact that you had a mindset where you were able to choose that mindset because you didn't want to be a victim of blindness, but you were seeing the beauty of blindness. And perhaps being a young kid then of 10 years, 11 years, you had the space. But when you look into India, if you look at the parenting style in India, it is one of overprotection. So even when an Indian young child becomes a young adult and later, we have an Indian culture where adults, the elderly in the family make decisions and important decisions always.
Whether blind or sighted.
Whether blind or sighted.
Exactly.
And when you then look at blind children or children with disabilities, I think the overprotection even steps up more because they just feel that we have to protect this child, and therefore the ability to choose a mindset or ability to see how I want to see my disability is not even an option. And you have worked here for 2 decades with 4 decades almost with people in Asia and Africa and across the world. What would you think about this overprotection? And I would also add it with the sacrificial mindset that we have, right? Like I have seen Indian parents where they actually take care of this child for 40, 50 years and then obviously get very fatigued. And then it becomes a question of I sacrifice my entire life for this child and they expect something, but of course nothing is going to come back now because you have made a victim out of this child and the child doesn't know what to do, now the young adult. What would your perspective on that Indian side of culture be?
See, let me start from the Indian culture in general. I see it I see a lot. I mean, we are working with mainly sighted people, mainly people without disabilities, and a lot of Indian participants who come to us have this problem that whatever they want to do that is outside of the general culture or the general mindset, the general convention, they have to fight for it, right? If they, for example, are not going for a regular job as as a lawyer or as a doctor or as an engineer, and they want to start an NGO, of course, the biggest battle are the parents, the spouses, the parents of the spouses, or the parents of the wife or the husband. So the biggest battle is actually the family that says, with your brain, with your abilities, why don't you become a governmental employee? Or why don't you become an engineer? Why don't you become a doctor, right? I think this battle by itself makes people risk averse and puts people in this mindset of, hey guys, I want to get rid of this pressure that I have from everywhere. I'm tired of it. I have this family fatigue or the culture fatigue maybe, and I want to just give in and just don't listen to that anymore, right?
Yes.
And I see it many times. People who have amazing dreams, amazing ideas, and they want to start something, and they get burned out, not because of the difficulties that come with that come with doing something new or doing something else, but actually with battling the conventions, the Indian culture. Now, where the whole family, the family notion of we have to take care of each other, or we have to secure you, we have to make sure that nothing happens to you. This is all not there, right? You are pretty much on your own once you can talk and walk, right? And I do see that the blind in Tibet are so much more enabled and empowered and actually have the right and have the ability to develop passions, which is the first thing that you need to have. I have never really, when I ask a blind person here, or even a sighted person here, what's your passion, what's your dream? There's a long silence, right? And we sometimes we talk to architects, where I say, like, architecture is one of the most beautiful professions. We talk to architects, was this your dream to become an architect? From 100 students that are sitting here and looking at the Kanthari campus, maybe 3 or 4 lift their hands and say, yes, I always wanted to be an architect. And you see the sparkling in their eyes. Now, think of blind people. I mean, if sighted people are not allowed to dream, how about blind people, right? There is not even a point of dreaming, because what can a blind person do, right? There is no idea, no creativity, what all we can do, right? That makes me actually very sad, I must say. And therefore I'm always saying, well, this overprotective culture is definitely not good for any society that wants to create people who are future ready. And it's not good for any society that wants to create risk takers, informed risk takers. I would not say just risk takers, right? But let's say adventure makers, right?
Yes.
And it's definitely, and therefore definitely not blind or disabled friendly. Compared to many other cultures that I got to know through Kanthari, I think India is probably the most blind unfriendly, in this sense, empowerment of the blind unfriendly cultures in the world.
Yes. I think I just want to pivot towards 2 sentences. I mean, wonderful set of things. But one, the fact of a dream not being set at all, or not growing a dream, be it for a child with disability or otherwise. But here we are talking about the blindness. And for me, one thing I want to really tell Sabriye is, the first thing that made me think when I met you and when I was mapping out blind achievers in India, I found all of the others whom I was talking to had to crack through, as you said, a disabled system to kind of bring out their really strong abilities. Whereas what I want to now pivot to is the school of excellence, or the school of problem solvers, as we have been talking about, because what has India seen from an education system for the blind? We have special schools for the blind in the country, but all of them in very dilapidated situations across states that we are working in, be it in terms of infrastructure, be it in terms of skilled teachers and leaders.
And philosophy, the lack of philosophy of empowerment.
Lack of philosophy of empowerment.
Exactly.
And what struck me, when I met Sabriye, because I grew up in India, I grew up in a very big social privilege where I thought my parents definitely did not overprotect me. My father pushed me for independence. The only thing we probably did was hiding it, because the more we spoke about it, the more we had to explain it. And I was also lucky to have a blindness situation where I do not look blind. Otherwise, you didn't have an option there. Now, after having said all that, when I met you for the first time and heard about how you went to the German school where you learned how do you do machine sawing, how you could do deep sea diving and horse riding,
Deep sea diving I didn't do.
you were pushed out of ships out to...
Okay, good.
Yeah, but ice skiing.
Yeah.
Don't you?
I did water skiing and skiing and
skiing, and then
surfing,
of course the horse. You should get to Sabriye's book, My Path Leads to Tibet, because I would have read it 2 times to believe it, that I had a friend who was blind who could do horse riding. I mean, it was unbelievable for me as a
deal, actually. The horse can see, right?
Exactly. So from the time I met Sabriye, my Indian dream is to really look at how do we create a school of excellence in India, because whatever we discuss now is a reality in India and we need to change that.
Yeah.
And therefore, how do we create that school of excellence and problem solvers, the school for problem solvers is something we should now speak about.
Yeah.
See,
maybe I start with my own schooling. When I started to become blind, or when I identified with the fact that I am blind, I decided to go to a boarding school, which is for the blind, and I still think it's one of the best boarding schools, or one of the best schools for the blind in the world, and academically seen as one of the best schools in Germany. Now, this school is good because they are not looking at the limitations, but they are looking at the possibilities. So they, for sure, their philosophy is empower the blind before they become disabled. Which means they need to give us all the techniques and all the methodologies in our hand, and then the doors can be open, right? And everything is possible. And definitely, when I told them about my odd ideas what to do in future, and they were not standing in my way. In the opposite, they were very, very interested in me doing what I wanted to do. So what was different in this school than in many other schools? First of all, the academics were high expectation, not low expectation, not on the lowest side of expectation. But we had, for example, 4 or 5 languages that we learned, right? We had Latin, we had English, French, Italian, Old Greek. We had very, very good science teachers, teachers who could have been professors in universities, but they chose to be in a private school, or government-funded private school, where they had small classes and where they could really use their creativity to come up with new ideas and new tools and new methodologies. So we had excellent mathematics classes, people who were teaching mathematics and philosophy, right? And people who were holding patents, and people who were experts in firework, and we learned through firework. We learned through making firework. We learned chemistry, for example, right? We had a garden, a biodiversity garden. We had astronomy way, which was created for us. We had sports, a lot of different sports where a lot of schools would say, oh my God, this is too dangerous. So for example, riding, acrobatic on horse, windsurfing, skiing, white water kayaking, trampoline, all these different sport activities where even sighted people would say, okay, this is too dangerous, right? However, what does it do with us? By mastering these kind of sports and by mastering the techniques, it gives us a lot of confidence, and it gives us the confidence that actually we can try out things. And if we just know the techniques well enough, we could go, we can take informed risks.
Absolutely.
And this is something that I learned. Another thing that I learned was what is actually disability? For many people, disability is seen as a limitation, and then we have to compensate this limitation somehow in one or the other way. But what I learned in my school is actually that disability, first of all, everyone is disabled in one or the other way, and disability can be also a platform for thinking in a different way. Now, when we look at the human as a creature, right? A human is pretty disabled, right? I mean, any sighted person has very limited sight if you compare it to an eagle or to a kite, right?
Yes.
Every hearing person has very limited hearing when you compare it to a dog. We are very limited when we have to walk. I mean, we cannot speed up like a gepard. We cannot speed up like a panther, for example, right? Now, what does it do with us? It doesn't frustrate us. It doesn't make us a victim of circumstances. It actually gives us the ability to be creative and be innovative, right? And through not being able to see enough, we create microscopes and we create glasses or hearing aids or microphones and so on and so forth, right? And this is something that people never really understand. And especially those people who are working with the blind, I always have the feeling that they are overcompensating. They try to say, well, you have to function like a sighted. And I don't think that we have to function like a sighted. We have to just invent or develop our own methodologies and our own solutions to conquer the world or to basically do what we can do best.
Absolutely.
So, and that is the difference, and that is maybe also the ground idea that I had for a school when we are coming to India. Now, India has probably most of the blind people in the world, right? Percentage-wise.
25%.
25%?
Of the world's blind population
lives in India, yeah? See, and that's a lot, right? So now, when I'm looking around in India, I feel that most of these brilliant minds, potentially brilliant minds, are actually paralyzed.
Yes.
By what? By overprotection, by charity, by parents who don't know better.
And by normalizing what you said earlier. We are trying to normalize the blindness to the sightedness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And trying to say, okay, the sighted are doing it like this, so you have to do it like this as well, but just with limitations. Yes. And it doesn't work like this. If I have a limitation, I have a limitation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I cannot I cannot negate it, but what I can do, I can jump over it. I can go another way. I can use a completely different tool to maybe come to a much better conclusion, right? The fact that I am blind doesn't mean that I have to stay on the status of a sighted person. So, for example, I give you one example. We had a little kid, a blind kid, who always wanted to become a taxi driver. Yeah, he loved taxis and he loved the dream of being a taxi driver, right? And yeah, well, you can say, okay, look at the taxi drivers in your city, and there must be definitely some blind people around. No, but this kid, while he was dreaming, of course he got older, and he understood, hey, wait a minute, I do have a limitation. But I do have a limitation. I will not be able to become a taxi driver unless we have self-driving cars, but then I don't also need a taxi driver anymore, right? However, what this kid understood was, yes, I cannot become a taxi driver, but I can start and run a taxi company. And that is much better, right? And this is exactly the attitude that we have to form.
Yes.
Now, when I'm looking at not the limitation, but at the ability of blindness. What is the ability, or what is the beauty of blindness? The beauty of blindness is definitely we are able to visualize that is not obvious. We are able to imagine things that are maybe not obvious to the sighted. Right? And we have to do this constantly, right?
Yes.
Whenever we hear something, see something, smell something, immediately there's an imagination, and we have to add points that are not obvious to us.
Yes.
Now, when I'm thinking of the future, who knows the future? The future is not obvious to us. The first time we met each other in 2019, who would have thought of COVID, of the war situation right now? Who would have thought of the mindset that is there right now? Who would have thought of that climate change is coming much faster than actually predicted, right? So we were not able to view it,
yes.
right? So, but what the blind can do, more than a lot of sighted, they can imagine what is not obvious.
Absolutely.
So, and why not taking this talent, this opportunity, or this necessity for the blind, and nurture it in a school of excellence, right? And make the blind basically problem solvers for the sighted, who are maybe, and sorry, in quotes, dumb enough to only want to know what they see. We have to start to imagine what we cannot see.
Yeah.
And there I feel the blind have a much stronger standpoint, or a stronger platform to jump off. However, now when I'm saying this, not every blind person is able to do this. We have to empower blind people to be able to do this. We have to empower blind people to be able to solve their own daily problems. To make them risk takers,
yes.
Informed risk takers, to make them adventurous, to give them a mindset of trying before saying I cannot, right? And to give them the understanding that blindness is not necessarily the point that holds me back, but actually a new platform to jump from. And therefore we are. Or we talked a lot about it. We said, okay, it should be a school of excellence. It should be high expectations of the blind, right?
Yes.
And it should not be a school of charity.
Not at all, yeah.
Yeah, this is what we discussed.
That's right. So we discussed three things. I mean, if I were to summarize, one, as you rightly said, this whole idea of the vision, Sabriye, even if I look at it from the corporate world, from where I came before, many times what is vision is the ability to see the unseen, right? What you said, the ability to see the future. And we can get if we empower the blind in a certain ecosystem and a certain mindset, if we nurture them, that is when the advantage of blindness flowers out, which is not happening at all today.
Yeah.
Today we are just making them sealed into a corner, and we need to get them out to be able to get the blindness advantage. That's number one that you're saying. Number two, in the School of Excellence, I remember we discussed about reverse integration, because so far we have tried to build a blind school and get sighted people or get these blind children go into a sighted society and integrate or include themselves. That has failed over a period of time. So the idea of School of Excellence, one of the thoughts I remember discussing is this whole idea of reverse integration, which means you are building it as the best school, not just keeping blind or sighted, but you're building the best school for problem solvers, as we discussed earlier. And then we have the best blind children coming in and doing and getting exposed and empowered. Best, when I say, I'm not qualifying them, but I'm saying they really get empowered. And the sighted, the so-called sighted children who are outside, would want to come into this School of Excellence because we are creating a microcosm of a society that would ideally be able to nurture and bring the best talent out of the blind first and then bring the sighted into it. Was it the idea of reverse integration? Did I put it? Would you add?
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yes.
Reverse integration only works if the first focus is on the blind, and the technology and or the methodology, or let's say the tools that we give are first of all empowering the blind. And if the blind are empowered, they can empower the sighted as well, right?
Yes.
So that would be a reversed inclusion for me, right?
Yes.
A little bit we did this in Tibet, where we gave our kids a head start in English, for example, or in Chinese. And when the kids went to regular schools and they integrated themselves into regular schools, they were the ones that were asked by the teachers, could you please help me with the grammar? Is that correct what I'm saying? They also told the sighted children, hey, you tell me what's on the blackboard and I do your homework later, right?
Yeah.
So in this way, the blind kids have a trade-off, and this is very, very important. In order to be able to make the blind being taken seriously by the sighted, they have to have a trade-off.
Yes.
And only then the sighted can forget that they are blind.
Yeah. And the other side that I also want to just highlight is the Kantharis, because the kind of transformative program that you run in the institute, one thing I've noticed and I've learned and I'm still learning over the years is how you bring in a Kanthari who's actually interviewed and selected basis that fire in them, right? I think you call it the fire to be a change maker that has come from a problem or a lived experience.
Exactly.
That really makes the fire hot and burning, and then you put the problem on its head to say that, like how you keep saying, what is the beauty of blindness? What's the beauty of having lived a life of poverty? Or what is the beauty of having been discriminated into the marginalized community for any intersectionality for that matter? And you place it on its head and allow the leadership in them to flow out, or the entrepreneur in them to flow out. And that, I think, is the crux of why the Kanthari program is so differentiated and successful, Sabriye. So with that, the reason why I thought I should come in and do this with you, and I'm so delighted because we speak from our hearts and experience and what we see. One of the dreams is definitely to see how we want to build a School of Excellence in India. And for us to be able to do that, we need coalition with different leadership in India, be it from the corporate sector, be it from the public, be it from the political avenues. We need leaders from all walks of life.
Blind leaders.
And blind leaders too, yes. And we all need to come together because this has to be a quick transformation. We can't take another 100 years to say, let's now transform the ecosystem for the blind. But India is an aspiring country that wants to develop it, that wants to grow and be in the top. And for us to be able to do that, I really feel this conversation has to be heard by a leadership that will change the ecosystem in this country. Because for me, you are a friend who opened my eyes as a blind Indian to say that we need to change, and we need to change fast. And for me, this conversation, therefore, I would really desire becomes the base to creating that coalition of leaders who think, yes, it is time we change, and it is an important point on our development agenda. You remember, Sabriye, at one point we said we should not speak about blindness. Like, we are not here to solve blindness problems, and like the blind should speak about other topics,
Yeah.
so that we take away the attention from the blind. I mean, as a global blind citizen, I 100% agree to that, and I would like global achievers, right, to come together in our peer generation to speak about problems much beyond the blindness, so that we solve for environmental issues, we solve for climatic issues, etc. through the eyes of the blind, who are thinking like what you said. But in India particularly, why I like where we ended it, and I would like to end the appeal there, is the moment we talk about this, the next step will be, let's then go and solve that. No, first, let's get the children out of the homes.
Out of the grip of their parents.
Yeah.